Now, what's so sensitive about the cartels in Latin America that certain people are trying to protect? Same thing happened in Ukraine, remember? When Trump zeroed in on Biden family corruption there, a CIA agent leaked a phone call to Schiff and they impeached the president. Now Trump's zeroing in on Latin America, and CIA Slotkin is threatening soldiers, and someone in the deep state's leaking to the Post, trying to get Hegseth impeached. What kind of corruption and money are we looking at down here in Latin America that some people in our government don't want looked at? We know the CIA and USAID, they've been playing games down there for decades in the dark. Now, the minute Trump takes an interest in our own backyard, not in Europe, not in the Middle East, suddenly powerful forces are trying to set him up. Very fishy. When did killing terrorists become a scandal? Democrats can let them come into our country and kill us, but we can't kill them? They're defending drug smugglers over American families. What about our rights and our lives? Senator Josh Hawley joins me now. Senator, do you see anything wrong with this strike?
Well, let me just say this, Jesse. I just think about a year ago, one short year ago, these cartels had total 100% control of our own border, of the southern border. They were calling the shots. They were sending in the drugs. The Biden administration was saying there's nothing we can do about it. And what happened? Donald Trump got elected president. He took office. He closed that border. He exerted control. He stopped the drug flow. And now he's taking the fight to the terrorists. I mean, where's the problem there? You've got a complete 180. He's actually defending the American homeland, defending the American people. And think about the millions of Americans who have lost their lives to these drugs that have been pouring across our southern border. I can tell you in my own state of Missouri, you can hardly go to a community in my state that 1 year ago was not awash in drugs. From where? Right across that border. The president has put a stop to it. And now the Democrats, they're whining and complaining and calling our own military murderers. I don't get it, but here's what I think most Americans get. Their communities are safer now, and that's because of what the president has done.
Did you hear what Hakeem Jeffries said? That following orders now in any branch could be a crime, and they're going to indict you in 4 years? What kind of message does that send to people just working in the federal government?
Well, it sends a message that elections don't matter, that it doesn't matter who the American people choose as their commander-in-chief, that if the Democrats get it back into power, they're going to come after you. I mean, listen, all I will say is we can't have a democratic form of government if the person who's been elected to be commander-in-chief cannot expect that his orders are followed. If the message is going to be to members of the military, members of the intelligence community, disobey orders, leak, foment insurrection, to use a phrase. I mean, listen, it is time for the Democrats to admit they lost the election last year. Donald Trump is the duly elected president of the United States. It's time that they admitted that they accepted that, and they allowed our democracy to work. Well, instead, what we've seen for a whole year, Jesse, a whole year, is attempts to undermine Trump, shutting down the government, telling officers not to follow orders. It is deliberately undermining the effective organization and operation of our country that needs to stop.
Do you think some people in this country don't want us to fight the war on drugs? Not because they like to do drugs, but for other reasons?
You know, it is interesting the amount of money that is involved here in this drug trade and the drug trafficking. President Trump is not the first president to declare war on drugs, but he is the president who's taking it very seriously and actually doing something about it. And I would just say it's always good to follow the money. I mean, for the people all of a sudden who are like, wait, let's not get too serious about the war on drugs.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, where are the profits here? But I will just say at the end of the day, Jesse, I'm glad to have a president who is defending the people of my state, who is defending the people of every state in this country and putting them first, as opposed to foreign adventures somewhere else or the agenda of the deep state. He's actually trying to protect American communities.
Yeah, I'm sure the people of Missouri aren't really clutching their pearls about some of these strikes. Senator, great to have you on as always. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.